Hi, y'all. Megan here from Romance by the Book with the lovely Marielle. And we are back for week 2 of May's Book of the Month, Servant of Earth by Sarah Hawley. So good.
It's good, and it left off at a
Yes,
intriguing spot.
it did.
However, look at
Yes,
your content warnings, guys.
yes. Very important. Please do. I do not want you to be traumatized by the things we talk about because a lot of it is very serious. So we pick back up with Kenna. She's walking through the maze in the pitch black and occasionally makes this like trilling sound that they taught her, which is how Laura's going to make it back. That's how she's going to find her. And so after about an hour, she does find her. And they fumble around through the maze until they start to kind of figure it out. Um,
It's like Kenna's kind of like, have you run into anybody? Also, do you still have all your tokens? Like kind of like
yeah.
status report.
Hmm.
And their goal is to like get through there as fast as possible because they know that if they have to fight anybody or
Yeah.
ward off a monster that they're going to be in a disadvantage, so they're not
Yes.
even trying to like collect points, or they just like
They just
chop
want to get
chop
out.
make it through.
And so at one point, somebody does come up on them and steal Laura's tokens. And she's like, fine, but like as long as you get out in time, like it'll still be fine, basically. And then they run into somebody else, and Kenna manages to grab tokens from him. I think there was 4, and gives them to Laura. And then Laura, they find the way out. Laura gets out, but as Kenna is heading back, she runs into Garrick, who is the mean one from before. She he's like, who is that? Because it's pitch black and she's not supposed to be in there. It's cheating. And so she makes noises like she's a nasty and like claws his face and then steals one of his tokens, like as a big FU, basically, and then like runs away.
Plan is to give one of those tokens to Lara,
Yes.
but
But by the time she
she
gets back to the
doesn't.
house, gets dressed, like makes herself look like she looked before, goes out there, like the ceremony thing is already
It
happening.
started.
And so she is standing there watching and the ceremony thing that's happening, and Drustan approaches her and says, I can sense the magic of the token. Like, how do you have that? You were in the labyrinth. And she's like, oh, fuck. And so she's like, she doesn't really admit to it per se, but like it's obvious that she was because she has the token. And so he's like, you need to get rid of that right now, or somebody else is gonna know. And so,
Like if I can feel that, like if I can sense the magic, other
right,
people will be able to.
especially Void House, whose trial it was. So she goes to get rid of it, but Callan stops her, the man in black. He demands to know how she
So
got into the
known as
labyrinth.
like the king killer.
The king's,
Like
yeah, the king's
he's
vengeance. So he stops her. He demands to know how she got into the labyrinth because, of course, it's well guarded because they don't want anybody to be able to cheat. And she says she snuck in, like, and she's basically like, nobody pays attention to a human. They turned around and I snuck in, kind of thing. And he, of course, doesn't know about the tunnels and she can't tell him about the tunnels. So he takes her word for it that that's how she got in. But he says, I could execute you for this. Like, you cheated. And he's like, I propose a bargain instead. You now owe me info whenever I want it about whatever I want, basically. And so far, what he wants to know is about Drustan, number one, and number two, things that Earth House discusses in private. And they're going to meet in that same hallway of Bloodhouse anytime she has information for him. She needs to show up, and then he'll eventually like show up to meet her, and she needs to just wait there, basically. And don't make me come looking for you. In other words, like I'm gonna expect you to show up periodically, and like if I have to come looking for you, that's not gonna be good for you. And so she's
She's like,
like,
I don't want to
"Oh
agree
God,
to this, but at the same
right?
time, she doesn't have any other choice
No, she
because
she'll be dead
he
otherwise."
doesn't want to be killed.
Yes, exactly. So, later on, after she sleeps some, Kenna heads down to the human levels. She meets this human woman who has just been released from the king's brothel. And since she's now going to be a servant, they're going to be cutting out her tongue like all the other humans the next day. And she's scared of it, but also it's what she's wanted. Like she wanted to be free of
He's just
that
like,
work. And so
and
she's scared.
Kenna is very like, if you choose to do sex work, that's one thing, but if you
Right.
got kidnapped out of your house,
Yes. As a
and
human
got
into the Fey
thrown in
world,
here. But that's a whole
it's
other.
horrifying. And Kenna wants to learn. She's realized that all the humans who can't speak have like a sign language that they use with each other, and she wants to learn that too. And so this older woman, Maud, who's in there kind of helping, Triana is the woman's name, um, is like helping her get situated, and she agrees to teach her, to teach Kenna while she's teaching Triana.
Really kind of horrifying in that in the implications, like the conversation they have is kind of Kenna is a curious girl, and so she was like, oh, so they didn't how come they didn't cut out your tongue? And she's like, well, I need
I
it,
needed it.
or they
It was
announced, and
needed.
it was
Yeah.
just like,
And
ugh.
Kenna realizes that's like, yeah, putting her foot in her mouth big time. So it's a terrible thing for her to discover that this even is like a place that exists, and then also to see like the ramifications of what it's done to somebody who has been dealing with it.
Right. And the people, she also thinks about how many people are like, "Ooh, if the fairies kidnap me, I'll be like in jewels, and it'll be," and
I'll
it's
be the
like,
princess. No.
no.
So,
And that the
yeah,
fact that they're gonna cut out her tongue tomorrow, and today's like the first day that she's like, "Hey, can somebody teach me sign language?" Is
right.
also, I was like, "What?"
Horrifying. So Kenna goes exploring in the like catacomb tunnels, and she overhears Drustan meeting with two others who she can't see. And they're talking of things treasonous, like plotting against the king. And she's like, interesting. Like maybe there's more going on here than I realized. And so as time passes, she finds other meetings and overhears other things about the trials that she can report back, because that's what she's really trying to find out, obviously, to save her own life. And one night after a party, she's heading back to Earth House, and Drustan stops her to flirt. And when he leaves, Callan steps out and asks if she's, he says, "Are you fucking the Fire Prince?" That's what he says to her. And she's like, "No." And he's like, "Well, it won't be long then. He usually gets what he wants," kind of thing.
He says he doesn't go after things he can't get, and or
Right.
something, and it's kind of
Yeah.
like
He's used to
to
getting what he
me, it was
wants, kind of
like
thing.
it kind
Yeah.
of like felt like an insult, but also kind of,
Yeah. And of course, he wants the information that she owes him. And so she tells him something she overheard about another kingdom called Ellesmere potentially having a new ruler, which does seem to interest him, unlike some of the other like minuscule things that she tells him. And so then he lets her
And
go.
she thinks she's giving him information that's like stuff she overheard that doesn't
Right.
really affect anything, but that thing
Well, right. She doesn't
like
know what that's
intrigue
about,
him.
so she doesn't really know if it affects anything or not, but she doesn't think it does, but it clearly means something to him.
Also, he does seem in like he makes comments. He has made a couple comments already
Mhm.
about like how often the fire prince, right, is talking to her, and like,
Right.
what are you guys talking about, and what
Right.
he sure does
Like
seem
he's a prince
interested in
and you're a
talking to
human
you.
servant. Like, what's happening here if not fucking,
Mhm.
basically?
Yeah, but even before,
Yeah.
like the first time, he was kind of like,
Yeah.
how come that guy's trying to talk to you?" And so she
Right.
in the past had been like, well, he bet on me to win, so I guess he's got an interest in how I'm doing or whatever, and he's
Right.
just like, uh-huh. And
Hmm.
then but
Yeah.
clearly he's suspicious of this.
Yes, definitely. So a month after the labyrinth, it's time for the light trial.
Yeah.
It's during a ball. They have to solve a series of clues, and they Kenna and Laura figured out a way to communicate with each other using this like magical bark that they can like wipe clean and then remark basically.
Sketch, but
And so Kenna's like helping her secretly figure out these clues, and they figure out the final one, which is Lara has to go like bow before the king, like in the middle of this party, and she's like doesn't want to do it, but like that's what the clue told her to do basically. So she does that. She gets the final piece, and they get it just in time, and she like stands on the proper spot, whatever the like final
little
thing was.
riddle that it tells her where she's supposed to be standing, and so they can't, so the bark works, but they can't be like looking at the bark because that's too obvious.
Right.
So for this last bit of it, Kenna's like walking over and like
brings her wine, like, oh, do you need anything else? Yeah. And then she's like,
to try to get her to like stand in the correct spot. Like she's
yeah,
trying to kind of signal her because they don't have a lot of time. So when the thing ends, like they're both standing in the spot because she finally got attention and she like
yeah.
scurried
And Kenna
over.
just like backs up out of the light that like shines on her. And so she and Aiden exchange some more info later, and he tells her that the only people who ever mention Bloodhouse anymore are the Nasties. And so she's like, well, I guess if I want to know about Bloodhouse, I got to go down and talk to the Nasties, which of course is extremely dangerous. So, I wrote, "Oh, Kenna" in my notes.
Yeah. And nobody else is like, no one's allowed to even mention it. Like, they will be like, the house that is no longer, or the, like, they
Yeah,
don't say
yeah.
the name.
And in fact, you can get killed. Like you can get executed just for talking about it. So she gets down to where the Nasties live, like on their levels or whatever, and she's attacked almost immediately, and she uses the dagger to kill this like snake-like thing. And all the Nasties see the knife and they start to like back away from her. And she's like, that's weird. And so she moves forward to find out who's in charge. And she finds Delida, Queen of the
This is
Nasties,
the
she
one,
calls herself.
this nasty, when she stabs it with her little dagger, it does suck all the blood out of
Oh,
it.
yes.
So just FYI, like it's
Yeah.
not just like a toosh,
Just the stab.
it's
Yeah.
like it sucks all the blood out, the knife sucks all the blood out of
Yeah.
the
It's
nasty. And
fast
so
because
it
it's magic, obviously, but still, it's like, yeah. And they all are like,
so
you know,
like
backing
nothing,
away
so
from
she
her.
stabs and like no blood comes out of it because it's been exsanguinated.
Yes.
And the dagger's like, oh, I was
Oh,
hungry.
so good.
And
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh my God. Yeah, and it's like, I guess this is different than hunting, but
Yeah, but like it
it,
feels different. Yeah. So she finds Deleda, she calls herself Queen of the Nasties. She tells her that Bloodhouse valued strength. That's like what the trial is going to probably be about, though she doesn't know is that like mental strength, physical strength, like she doesn't know. And then Deleda wants that knife. She sees it and she's like, "Where'd you get that?" And she's like, "Oh, it was my dad's." And she's like, clearly doesn't believe her. And her men start like surrounding Kenna and she's like, "Oh, she's going to try to take this." And so Kenna has to
she
kill
is like,
several
if
of
you give
them.
me the knife, I'll give you information. And like, what's it worth to you? And she's just like,
Not
no.
this much. Yeah. And so she ends up having to kill several of the guards as she's running away.
Some
Five
of them
five
do not.
total.
She does notice that some of the nasties like kind of defer to her while
Hmm.
other ones are. So she kills them to get herself out of there. But she
Yes.
did notice that like they weren't all on the same page.
Well, and she's very clear that it was her or them. Like she had no choice, but she feels guilty about it still. And also she feels guilty because she felt like she kind of enjoyed it and she doesn't really know what to make of that. And it makes her feel bad.
She
And
also
she's also like,
like in that, like she's got the dagger's thoughts in her head, and so sometimes she's like, "I'm not sure. Was that me that was like, yay,
or was that the
killing?"
dagger? And she's not sure. So that makes her feel weird too. So she decides she needs to be proactive, more proactive to help if there's going to be a rebellion, because that's the only way that any of them are ever going to be free. Like, and she's determined that she's going to seek out Drustan again, um, and kind of make her like presence known as like a help to him, basically. And so, uh, she does find him, and she tells him like he kind of implied before, like, oh, if you're a friend of mine, then information, whatever. And so she goes and basically tells him, like, yes, we are friends, like very seriously. And she tells him about seeing the nasties, and he's horrified. He's like, what do you
Like
mean?
you went down there.
Yeah. And she tells him about the queen, and while he does know Deleda or know about her, he does not know that she's been calling herself a queen. And that is interesting because of course there's only one king, and the king definitely would not like that happening. And so he thanks her for the info, and he says how they'll be making Misty a better place, and she like feels pretty good about her choices at this point. So it's the spring equinox. It's Earth's very special holiday. There will be like a big bonfire, like to symbolize starting over, and it's actually above ground. So she's like very excited that she might
I
get
get to
a
see
chance
the sky and the sun.
and maybe get a
And
chance to run
also,
away.
everybody is like, woohoo. Also, hedonism happens. And she's like,
Yeah.
okay, I don't know
Yes.
about all
Well,
that,
and it's
but
obviously a very old ritual, and so the king can't really do anything to change it, but you can tell that he doesn't love how he doesn't have power in these situations. Like in these specific houses on their high holidays and stuff, like he just has to kind of go along. Like there's only so much he can do
to
about it.
control the.
Yeah. And so they first there's a ritual in the throne room to renew the ward. The house heirs all cut their arms and bleed into this crown that's carved into the floor, which is a ward that protects the king from violence from any of the houses. So basically they all give their own blood and say that they won't do violence against him, and if they do they end up being killed instead.
So,
And so
they're not, their magics won't work in that throne room. Like
no,
only his magic
only
works
his.
in the throne room.
Yeah, like not even his house, like nobody else, only him. And so Ken is like, oh, great. Like, so really, like, he can't even be killed by any of the Fae. Like, this is terrible. And so, but she's so happy to be outside again, so that she's momentarily like, oh, thank God. And she hopes she might have a chance to escape, but she sort of like edges away from the party, and Drustan finds her. And they talk about Fae territory, how big it is, and how the king forced them all underground after the rebellion 500 years ago, and they're basically all prisoners in Mistei. And he
They
also
used to
warns
live,
her,
they used to live in the mountains and on the glens and out, and they used to trade with humans. Like, so some of the lore
right? That's where it came
that
from.
she learned was true. It's just
Yeah,
not true now.
yeah,
And Kenna is like, oh, okay. So originally her goal was to like figure out a way to get out of there.
yeah.
And she's realizing, like, okay, well, there is no way for me to get out of
Yeah,
here.
and he tells
And
her
then
there even the outside is warded against escape. Like the king's wards cover the whole place, basically.
and she also, the more people she meets, I think the more she's kind of like, I'm not the only person
That
who
needs to get out.
needs to
Yeah,
escape this.
absolutely. So then he insists that she dance with him. Apparently, the Equinox Festival is much more like egalitarian, like open to different houses and stations mingling. And so it's not weird for him to be dancing with her. And so they dance. And then she also dances with a lot of others, including the goat man, whose name is Paul, we find out. And then with Callan, who demands a dance. She hasn't come lately with any info for him. And he asks if she's still helping Lara. And she lies and says no. And he's like, good. And he says to her in kind of a very serious moment, if you give too much of yourself down here, you risk losing everything because no one else will ever return that loyalty. And he's clearly warning her. And she's surprised by this.
Like, it's clear, but it's not clear, right? Like
Right.
he's saying, and it's like, so it could be general, could be something specific.
Right.
We don't know. We're at a party, so we're not going to think too hard about it.
Right.
But still.
It's a very interesting turn of events for her.
Mhm.
So Kenna watches Lara dance and thinks about how much Anya loved to dance, and she realizes that this whole time she's been comparing the two of them a lot, mostly to Laura's detriment, which isn't really fair to her. And she has to let that go. Like this is her life now. She's got to figure out a way to make it work. And like she's got to,
Anya's gone, so she's,
yeah,
she, even though we have watched soap operas and read books, and so we, at least, we have
yes,
like a little niggling feeling that
right.
maybe,
Like if you didn't
but
see her die, is she dead? Question mark. But Kenna certainly thinks she is.
and there's no reason to think like
Yeah,
there's
there's
no
been no
reason to
sign
think
of
that
her
she.
or anything, like, but it's just something that's like in the ether. So, they're getting ready for the light trial. They have to bear whatever happens to them in stoic silence. That's
Yeah.
the like the trial.
Wait, though.
Oh,
There's also like during this. Oh no, continue.
okay.
Sorry, I got
So they
myself.
walk on broken glass, the participants do to the center, and they have to lie down. There's like broken glass all over this marble like area. And the servants have a case with three vials. They have to bring them out one at a time for the participants to drink. and it's clearly going to hurt based on everything that's happened so far.
Yeah. Well, even when they first go in there, like it's not apparent that they're going to be walking on glass. It just
Yeah.
like the floor is sparkly.
Yeah.
And when they start walking, she's like, "Oh no, their feet are bleeding." And
Yeah.
the people who came from this house are wearing like thick-soled shoes
Yep.
that
They have
Kenna
on
is
big old
not.
boots. Nobody else.
Kenna's got
Yep.
like thin-soled
Slippers.
ballet slippers, and she's like, "Oh no."
Yeah. So she's getting part of this, even if she wasn't trying to cheat, like just having to walk out to Lara and give her the vial, like she's getting hurt too. So Kenna drinks half of each vial when she gives them to Lara to try to like help her lessen whatever is going to happen. And so the first one is just like agonizing pain. And then the second one is horrible illusions. And then the third, like the worst, like your worst fears kind of stuff. And then the third one is void.
You're
Just
hallucinating
like,
them. You're
yeah,
hallucinating your worst fears. And
yes.
then
And the third is a void, just fully darkness, endless shadows, like terrifying. And so they get through it. And since Kenna has no magic, her feet take days to heal. And when they finally do, she goes down to see Maud and Triana, and they're working on their sign language lessons. And she wants to do that, but Maud hands her a note and kind of shoos her off. And the note is from Callan, which is to find out what Drustan knows about Prince Hector immediately, is what it says. And Hector is Callan's brother. He is the prince of their house. And so she's like, like what could I find out about his brother that he doesn't already know?
yeah.
So it's weird. So she goes to find Drustan. She sees him coming out of a door of like a hidden staircase near his house. And they go into this room to talk. He like puts a ward over the door so people can't hear them. And she asks about Hector in the guise of her helping Laura. Like she implies that like she saw him kind of eyeing Laura and she was like worried. She wants to know like what his deal is. And so Drustan kind of implies that Hector likes his companions like less than willing. And also there's a big rumor that Hector killed his own father to become the heir or like to become the prince. And he's pretty sure that Hector wants to be the king, but he has no proof of that per se, like that he's planning his own little coup while Drustan's doing what Drustan's doing. And
He kind of implies that he's like trying to cozy up to the king
right,
too.
yeah. And so they're flirting, of course, after this, as usual, but this time Drustan actually kisses her. And she's like thrilled, but eventually he pulls away and says, like, if you don't want to finish this now, then like I need to go, like, because I'm getting myself all worked up here, basically. And so he goes. And she goes to meet Callan right after and repeats most of what she heard, but nothing treasonous, of course. And as she goes to leave, he says, "You smell like smoke." And she's like, "Oh, I was in the kitchens." And he says, "Liar." And you're like, "Oh, okay. This is like things are afoot there."
Mhm.
So, another formal dinner, like a week
Sweet
later,
Talon. Mm.
Callan, yeah, you don't know much about him because she doesn't. And obviously, this is all her POV. And the interactions that she's had with him have all basically been tainted by the first time she ever saw him. He literally murdered a guy in front of her. Like, that's all she can think about when she looks at him. And so, obviously, that's
Reputation is definitely, but
yes.
she has had a couple of instances where she's like, "Whew, he could have killed me," and he didn't.
Yeah,
So
for sure. So, another formal dinner is like a week later, but she's anticipating something horrific happening like it did the last time. And then Paul, the goat man, comes in with a baby. And the king announces that a grave crime has been committed. And this woman, you can hear, like cries out from the crowd and like comes running forward. It's a woman from Lighthouse. And he says to her, "Do you deny this child is born of two houses?" And Light and Void, like those two people had a
together.
baby, which is fully against the rules. And he's like, do you deny this? And it's an abomination, et cetera, et cetera. And she's like, she tries to deny it, and he's not having it. And then she says, "It was an accident. Please let him stay with me." And so he hands her back the baby. for a moment, and then one of his guards grabs it and literally throws it across the room. The mother is screaming. Kenna is crying. Like both Callan and Drustan look irate. And the king makes them all watch. She's realizing now the reason that he does this, the way he does it with them all there, is because he makes them all watch, knowing that none of them are going to do shit about it. And then they're all complicit. And she is just horrified. And it was horrifying. I cried.
Yeah,
And
same.
it was a lot. It was a
It
lot.
was a lot of it.
And so he orders 60 lashes for her lying and then another 60 lashes for the crime of having the baby out of her house. And also talks about like using herbs so that it scars. And they do it right there in front of everybody. It's brutal. And so afterward, the lady is unconscious and the king is like, a toast, like just goes on like nothing happened. It's vile.
Yeah.
And so as soon as they get back to Earth House, like as soon as they walk through that little water tunnel, both Kenna and Lara like break down. And Kenna says, "Will that woman live?" And Lara says, "Yes, but will she want to?" And it was horrific. Um, and then the princess, Lara's mom, comes in behind them, and she's very derisive of Laura's upset.
Yeah.
She says, "We all know the price of disobedience and the cost of loving anything." And then she just goes in the house. And they're both like, what the fuck? Yikes. Um,
Yeah, and us as
brutal.
well. As we're reading, we're like, this is a mom, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my God, it was brutal. So Laura goes to bed, but Kenna finds herself, she can't go to sleep. And so she finds herself over near Firehouse. And she kind of falls asleep in an alcove, like near where she met with him before. And Drustan finds her there. And they go into the same room. And she says, "What will happen to the baby?" And he said, "It's a changeling now. It will be sent to the human world and exchanged for a human baby to grow old and die alone." That's like how he describes it. And she's like, "Why?" And he basically says houses originally started breeding only with themselves for power. Like they realized if they were powerful and they had another person from the same house that was also powerful, then their kids were powerful. And it wasn't the case when they were like interbreeding
Looted the
outside of the house.
bloodline or whatever.
Right. And so it started off like they did it themselves kind of. Like and then the king like mandated it after a certain point. And Osric, the king, started sending the changeling babies away, basically so no bonds can be cultivated between houses, because of course he doesn't want that. Because if the houses start getting together, then there could be another uprising like there was 500 years ago. And so Kenna is everything about this whole situation. She's just like is in a state of horror this whole time. And Drustan tells her about his closest friend from childhood, Mildritha, who was from Firehouse, and he always loved her, but she ended up falling in love with the Earth Prince or the Earth Prince heir, Leo, which is Lara's older brother who died before she was even born. But we have heard like that he existed, but we didn't really know anything about him before.
We knew that he was like the apple of his mother's eye,
Yeah,
and that he, like, everyone agreed that he would have made an excellent prince,
right.
and that he. So
Yeah.
we know that Lara is not as good as him. That's what
Yeah,
we've
right. Yeah, for sure.
that's how it's
That's all
been
we know.
framed.
Yeah. So she got pregnant and they got found out. And Leo stayed with her, took the punishment with her, unlike the dad of this baby from tonight who didn't show his
Who
face.
disappeared.
Yeah. And he was desperate to get them out, of course. And he died trying to find a way through the wards. And after the baby was born, it was taken, and then she killed herself, like not even a week later, he said. The whole thing was just like a horror show. And so Kenna just has to like, deal with that. I mean, this is like the world she's living in now, and she has the information she wanted, and that's it. So the next day or the next trial, whatever, is like a picnic situation, and all the other participants start kind of picking on Kenna more to get to Lara than caring about whether it hurts Kenna's feelings. Like she's basically an animal to them. Like they don't care about her or her feelings. They're trying to prick at Laura. And so,
He did have a reaction that last time, so I think they're
right,
kind of trying to see if they can get a rise out of her again.
yes. And so Garrick is like, look at her, she's hideous. Like, Laura's supposedly so beautiful. Like, why would they give you a servant that's so unlike you? Maybe her beauty is hidden, he says. And he rips open the front of Kenna's dress, just right there out at the picnic in front of everybody. And the dagger starts talking in her ear, kill. And Kenna's like, no, we can't kill him. Punish, it says instead. And so she's trying to keep cool because this dagger really wants to fucking kill this guy. And so,
He's
and I
like,
mean,
how about
same.
we murder him?
And so Laura is
And
trying to stop
Kenna
him.
will say that we know from the beginning that Kenna's got a little bit of like she likes justice, but she does have a bit of like a
Vengeful.
violent,
Yes.
vengeful streak. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
it's not like I don't know. I feel
It's
like
not
the
the knife
dagger is
itself.
encouraging, but she's like trying not to
Yes.
not to
And
let
so
that
Laura
influence
at
her.
this point has actually gotten up and is trying to like stop Garrick, but she can't. And all of a sudden, a voice, stop this. It's Callan. His sister, his younger sister, is one of the participants, and she walks over and whispers something in his ear, and he looks murderous. And then he says, the human is off limits. She belongs to Earth House. And Garrick, being that he thinks he's, the man, he says, why does it matter? She's worthless, basically. And Callan puts his sword to Garrick's neck before Garrick can even move and was like, think before you question my orders. And he's like, you can't kill me. And Garrett and Callan is like, oh, I can. Like, you want to see, basically. And Garrick then realizes that he's deadly serious and he apologizes to Callan and to Laura, not to Kenna, of course. And all Laura says is, don't let it happen again. And Kenna is like, what the? And so Callan takes Kenna back to Earth House as she's like clutching her dress closed. And she starts like ranting out her rage on Callan, which is really not the smartest thing she's ever done. But it's like, it's there. She can't stop herself.
Mad.
She's so
And to
mad.
be fair, she did not kill
Yes. She
Garrett.
did not kill the guy.
So
She absolutely could have, for sure. Um, and uh, and she's furious. And she's just like taking her rage out on him. He tries to explain, like, if you want to live long enough to change this world, you have to play by its rules. Like, there's only so much you can do in mixed company, kind of thing.
yeah.
And she's like, well, why don't you go report me to the king then, since you're his loyal dog, basically. And his expression just like blanks out, and she's like, oh shit, that was too far. And so he tries to
Like
change
I
the
found the
subject.
line.
Yeah, he tries to change the subject to try to like give her an out. Um, and and he's like, so what has Drustan told you lately? And she's like, well, he told me about the changelings when I asked after that night. And he says, what does he think about them? And she's like, I assume he finds it cruel. And he's like you do. And she's like, yes, obviously. And he's like, what do you think? Or she says, what do you think? And he doesn't answer. And then she says, do you truly not have a problem with it? And he says, I can't afford to have a problem with it. None of us can. And she's still pissed. So she's not really seeing clearly how this conversation is going all the way, but it's starting to prick her mind that like I need to be reading between the lines here. Like he didn't say he doesn't have a problem with it. He says he can't afford to have a problem with it. And so this is all starting to finally like make some sense to her. And
Yeah.
she says, "Why did you save me?" And she's like, "It can't only be because I'm useful." And he says, "No, it's not." And she says, I suppose I should thank you. And he's like, are you going to? She's like, thank you. And
It
it's really funny actually at the end of
is.
all that. Um so that night Lara locks on her
To
door.
me, how
Yeah.
she gets mad does a thing
Yeah.
with Kellen in particular. Like
Yeah.
she like and then she's like, oh, maybe shouldn't have done that.
Yeah. Like
But
of all the people to air your grievances on, the king's vengeance is maybe not the best choice. I'm just saying.
every time or the first time, like she just and
Yeah.
he anyway.
Yeah, it's funny. So Lara knocks on her door late that night. She lets her in. She apologizes. Kenna doesn't let her off the hook. She's like, that should never have happened. Like, you could have fought him. You could have done something. Like, you did jack all, you know?
Yeah.
And she's like, people depend on you, not just me. Like, you can't just stand by and let them do that, you know? And Laura's basically like, I know, but I'm not strong like you. Like, and also I don't know how to have a friend. Like, but I'm gonna try. Like, I'll do better. And it's actually really sad.
Kind of sweet. Yeah.
Yeah. And so now Beltane has arrived. A scandal awaits at the party later because it is the hedonism trial. And there are some nobles from other like realms that are there too, which she's never seen anybody who doesn't like live in the, you know, in the cave with them basically.
But yeah.
Um, and so at the little pre-picnic thing, Drustan checks in with her about what she told Callan because he saw like he saw Callan like walking away from that, you know, picnic thing with her, and he wants to know what she told him. And he basically wants to make sure, you know, that she kept his secrets, obviously. And of course she has. So Kenna is not supposed to come to the event because there's actually like a separate event for the servants. Um, this is supposed to be just the like nobles or whatever. And but she has to go there to help Lara because the trial is like during the event. And so at the bonfire, everyone like jumps over the fire and then they just start doing something, fighting, sex,
She
like whatever.
will say that she like her wardrobe gave her like a mini like twin set thing.
Yeah.
So she is
She's like,
wearing
can I call it
less
a dress if it's in two pieces?
when it's like a mini, like
Yeah.
it's she is not like Lara, even when she sees her, is like, whoa.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah. She is not comfy, that's for sure. Um, but so she's watching everybody doing their thing.
but
And
also she feels a pull towards that little fire.
yeah.
And she ignores it.
Yeah. And she
And
sees Callan, like Callan jumps over it and he just goes and punches somebody out and they start fighting, but they're like laughing too. Like it's clearly all like everybody is into it. And then Laura does the same thing. She jumps over the fire. She just starts hitting people and then kissing them and then hitting them and kissing them. And she's just like going all around. And so Kenna is like, this is crazy. And so um she goes to find Laura and is like, hey, are you okay? And Laura is like, yes, it's wonderful. Like the fire told me to be strong. And so like I'm gonna be fine. And Kenna was like, okay.
she runs into like a face. She's kind of in disguise. Like people aren't really
Yeah.
noticing who she is, but they're also like, "Hey, so you're sober? What? Why?"
Yeah, because one of them
Like,
tries to get her to dance and she's like, she puts him off and he's like, oh, you didn't jump over the fire. Because like in other words, like you would have never said no if you were in this with the rest of us, you know? And so they start chanting, like, you know, jump, 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 whatever. And
yep,
so
and pushing her
she,
towards it. So she's like, "Okay, I
yes.
guess."
So she jumps and she's sort of in limbo. She sees herself in limbo, like over the
She like
fire.
pauses over
Yeah.
like
Like
during the
fully,
jump
like
and like,
mid leap. And the fire says, what do you want?
and the answer is immediate. Like it comes out of her heart. Like she doesn't even have to think about it. There's just an answer there.
Yes. Like, I want to be loved. I want to be touched. I want to be free. That's what she says. And the fire says, then do it. And so she jumps over. She goes to find Drustan.
She finishes the landing.
Yes, he is stunned to see her, also super excited. She just lays one on him. He picks her up and they take off over to another area and he puts up this like wall of fire to like give them some privacy.
Looks like a little down, a
Yeah, down the
little
slope,
away from
whatever.
the big.
And so they have sex, which is her first time, and she finds it transcendent. She's like, I don't know how much of this is like the magic and how much of this is just me, but like, holy shit, that was amazing. And that's the end
She's
of
like, I have never felt so free,
chapter
but
23.
also like
Yes.
had orgasms.
So many. Yes. So that's the end of chapter 23. Obviously, there's still a lot of things afoot, and we will finish out next week. Bye.